Welcome to the October 11th Planning Board meeting. Will you join me and rise to the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Marlene, would you call the roll, please?
Chad Reed,
Present.
Roger Beely,
Here.
Jennifer Ladd,
Here.
and Karen Chu.
Here.
Okay, our item number 8, Atlantic Credit Union has been tabled in the agenda. And we're going to move to item number 5, which is a consent item. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the minutes. Do I have a motion for the minutes? Anybody? Please,
So moved.
a second? Any discussion, any comments? Darlene?
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Karen Chu.
Yes.
Okay, now we're on to item number 5, the consent item. Meisner Investments LLC is requesting a site plan review for the drive-through coffee establishment and the retail commercial building at 451 Payne Road, assesses map R37, lot 14A.
Thank you, Roger. So as he mentioned, Martin's is in front of the planning board with a 5,600 square foot proposal for a 5,600 square foot structure. It will be comprised of a drive-through coffee business as well as 2 commercial storefronts for lease. The applicant has worked with the town and Maine DOT to recently secure the draft TMP, which is in front of the Maine State Traffic Engineer for signature. And staff has prepared a draft motion with the following conditions. There's just a picture of the plan. A couple waivers, one waiver at least, is section 4D2 to reduce the minimum drive aisle width from 25 to 24 feet. The traffic impact fees were also waived. This is a request that staff would think that would take this from a consent item to a full discussion. So if the board and the applicant want to go that route, we can, but short of that, we have some conditions of approval to revise the plan sets, have formal public works and Portland Water District and Scarborough Sanitary District approvals, minor plan adjustments based on our peer traffic engineer review memo from Traffic Solutions, provide the final signed TMP from DOT, the amended DEP permit, and pay traffic impact fees, which will need to be reviewed by the town's peer reviewer and approved by the planning department. Installing sprinkler and fire alarm systems and a Knox box, stormwater facility upkeep that's been recommended to us by the board by Woodard and Curran, as well as standard conditions, which are in the attached draft motion. And with that, I turn it back to the board.
Okay, thank you. Before I proceed, I should mention that 2 of our regular members are absent. So in their place, Karen Shoup and Chad Reed, our alternates, will be voting members. The applicant.
I will just note, based on previous conversations with staff, the waiver regarding the impact fees, it was noted that I believe staff mentioned it would not be supported by them. So at that point, that second waiver would not be requested. It stays as consent.
Okay, this is a public comment. Is there anybody from the public has anything to add to this? What's that? So I have a draft motion, which Eric read most of it already.
I just have a quick question. Can I
Okay.
ask a question?
Sure.
So are you saying that you are no longer requesting a waiver. So you do intend to pay the impact fees and you are not requesting a waiver for that?
Yes, and in previous discussions with staff, it was noted that the waiver would not be supported. So we would just look to move forward with that.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Are we all set
Yes.
now? All set, Karen?
So are we amending this draft motion now to get rid of number
Yeah.
2 or?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. I move to approve the project entitled Martin's Commercial, titled Martin's Commercial, proposed by Miser Investment LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 8/15/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: 5,130 square foot retail commercial building at 465 Payne Road, located within the parking lot of the existing Martin's site. The structure will contain 3 tenant spaces, 2 of which will be storefronts in the future and 1 which will be a drive-through coffee shop. Waivers, section 4.d-2 to reduce the minimum drive aisle width from 25 feet to 24 feet. And conditions, number 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall: A, revise plan set as discussed at the 10/11/22 planning board meeting. B, provide formal approval from the Portland Water District and the Scarborough Sanitary District. C, the applicant shall execute and record a storm maintenance agreement with the town. The form of the storm maintenance agreement is located within Appendix 1 of the Town of Scarborough's Chapter 419 Post-Construction Stormwater Infrastructure Management Ordinance. D, address the comments in the traffic solutions memo dated 8/25/22. E, provide the final signed Maine DOT traffic movement permit. F, provide the final signed amendment to the Maine DEP Site Location Development Act permit. G, pay the traffic impact fees. H, ensure that the building will be served by sprinkler and fire alarm systems and a knock box will be with a tamper switch installed. I, implement stormwater facilities recommendations provided for the 8/29/22 planning board meeting. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and the site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. All plan modifications are to be completed prior to scheduling the pre-construction meeting. 4, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, any outstanding non-health and safety related or off-site improvements that have not been completed must be part of a performance guarantee of 150% of the necessary improvements to be reviewed, approved, and held by the town of Scarborough. And 5, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall submit evidence in the form of a letter or plan prepared and stamped by the professional engineer who either prepared the post-construction stormwater management plan and its associated facilities or supervised the plan and facilities construction and implementation. The letter or plan shall be certified by the stormwater management facilities. And let me read that again. The letter or plan shall certify that the stormwater management facilities have been installed in accordance with the approved post-construction stormwater management plan and that they will function as intended by said plan. Do I have a second? Okay, Chad, second. Any comments? Any further comments? All those in, Arlene?
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Roger Bailey,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Karen Shu.
Yes.
Okay, item number 6. Big Mountain Realty Trust requests an advisory opinion to permit a conversion of a non-conforming use of land to a storage facility and auction center at 36 Running Hill Road. The property is further identified as Assessors Map R18, Lot 39. Eric?
Thank you, Roger. So Big Mountain Realty Trust is in front of the planning board requesting an advisory opinion before the applicant goes to the zoning board of appeals tomorrow for that miscellaneous appeal application. The property would be transferred from one non-conforming use to another, and the existing building would be used for warehousing items. Staff is aware of several environmental hazards in this area and suggests that the board discuss this with the applicant. And any outstanding violations or history in this regard. At the conclusion of the discussion, the board should vote to agree on an advisory opinion to send to the ZBA to either recommend to approve with conditions, or deny the miscellaneous appeal. And with that, I turn it back to the board.
Okay, and the applicant?
Good evening, folks. My name is Steph Keenan. I work with the Keenan Auction Company. Our family business is looking to purchase this facility, the Goldstein Steel facility, to convert this into a lay-down warehouse storage yard for our auction business. The auction business for our company has traditionally been an on-site live auction company where we would go out in personal property type auctions. We would go out and sell business assets at the company's location. We would do this throughout New England and throughout the state. We also conduct auctions where we conduct a very large consignment auction where we may have as many as 500 to 1,000 people attend our sales, sell 1,000 items, and do these sales at, for instance, the Beach Ridge Motor Speedway parking lot. We sell items that are put in on consignment from towns, municipalities, even the town of Scarborough, private companies throughout Maine, and they range from vehicles to logging to construction equipment and so forth. That is not what we're looking to do here. We've been in business for 50 years. We've conducted over 8,000 auctions, and a lot of people understand our business and understand who we are. But for this small facility over on Running Hill Road, we need a place to store our own personal equipment. We need a place to store clients' equipment that is getting ready to go to an auction. Our business model has changed. We conduct 2 live auctions a year. Ordinarily, we conduct about 300 auctions a year, with about half of those sales being personal property. Of those 150 some odd personal property auctions, 2 of them are live. The rest of the sales are done on an online basis. The online model is one of which you go to the person's business, you catalog, you develop an inventory of their assets. It could be a restaurant, a machine shop, a woodworking facility, you name it. We sold about most every business you can think of. Just recently, Mercy Hospital. We go in and we set these items up, we catalog them, and we put them online to sell. People will come and view the items. They'll take a look at them, then they'll turn around and go to their computers back at their home or business, bid on these items. And then if they're a successful buyer, they come to the location and pick them up and purchase them and take them away. This facility would be a place where we would store certain items that a bank may call us up and say, we need a vehicle sold. The town of Scarborough, we sell a lot of your vehicles each year, and you may say we have 5 cop cars we want to sell. So we take these vehicles and we store them there until a sale comes that we can either put them in a live sale like at Beach Ridge, or we could put them in a timed online auction, and people would come to this site, take a look at the vehicle, then go home, bid on them, and come back. The difference between the live and the online sale is the impact. It's very low impact. So somebody had a question about that here. a live event here, if I tried to do one, we just don't have enough space. There's not enough parking to have a large live event. I could do a small auction here with maybe 20 items, 50 items, 20, 30 people, and a small, very intimate event, not like Beach Ridge Motor Speedway where I have 1,000 people and a lot of cars and I need 12 acres to do it. This event for a timed online would just be housing whatever asset the bank or my client that's I'm working for wants me to house and sell. We just don't always have a timed online sale that we can put a sale item into, so we have to wait sometimes. The item could sit on our lot for a couple of days. It could sit there for a couple of months. Recently, I had a vehicle from the town of Standish that sat at my Congress Street location for 6 months because they had a title issue and I had room and we left it there. So you might see something on a rare occasion where you have an item there for a long time. So that is the nature of what we're trying to do with this facility. And I noted in the questions you folks had, or in the materials you folks had some questions. Would you like me to go down through those written questions that you had? I'm prepared to do that, or would you like to just ask them?
If you can add anything. that would be-
Sure. One of the questions you had is based on past experience, how much and what type of equipment auctions items are stored in the building? There's a 1,500 square foot building there that we would use as warehousing. You think of a 1,500 square foot building as not a very big warehouse, but if you do the math on it, it's about 4 tractor trailers. Okay, is basically what that square footage and volume adds up to. We'd be storing just one-off type items. Somebody might have a woodworking or a lathe or something. We need to store it in there. They might have a small computer shop that would have to go in here. We know it's not a lot of space, but it would be used to store those types of items, and also our own personal business equipment of snow blowers, that type of stuff for our own personal company. They want to understand what type of items would be outside. We presently have a location at Congress Street over by Unum, and I've got trailers over there. I've got snowplow truck and those types of business assets that we use regularly. Those items would be shifted over to this facility and we would store them there and get them off our main office area. Then as far as outside equipment that would be for clients, you name it. It could be anything. We had 3 lobster stunners last year that we sold for one of the banks. They're 17 feet long, 7 feet high, and 8 feet wide. And you've never seen anything like it. So it could be an obscure asset, or it could be a skidder, or it could just be simple car. These are the kinds of items that we would sell. And again, it ranges. We normally are going to have continually there about 8 to 10 of our own items, and we may have a couple of larger storage trailers that we would again use for interior type storage. Somebody had asked here whether we have petroleum or chemicals, and how do we handle those types of items. First off, we don't sell any petroleum or chemicals. We don't sell anything hazardous. It just is not our business model, and we don't and aren't licensed to do that. That's how we would take care and preserve the environmental integrity of the property. We typically, if a vehicle comes in and it's leaking and there's problem with it, I don't sell it. I don't want to take on liability. If there are some problems, a minor leak or something, we put absorbent pads or a pan underneath like we've done for the past 50 years. It's just simple common sense that we use when we have spill kits and we have, flammable cabinets and fire extinguishers and all that type of stuff for safety and to prevent leaks. But we've never had an episode in our 50 years. We've never had a spill or anything of that nature. So a lot of good common sense goes into it, but we do have equipment and stuff in a program that we follow. Our own personal vehicles that we would store there under a maintenance program, and we have no issue there. I had covered what a low impact event was. Somebody had asked that, but they also asked, how many attendees do you anticipate coming to this site? And an online auction, as I mentioned earlier, you do a preview of the asset. And if I had 25 items over there or 30, I would advertise an online, a preview for the online participants to come look at the items. I could anticipate maybe seeing 5 to 20 people attend the preview. That's a lot. It's amazing how many people buy online today at our auctions and just don't look at the items. They just don't do it. Imagine yourself bidding on Amazon. It's the same thing. You just buy it and it comes. The same thing that we do here, but we offer that, and it's low attendance. We don't have a lot of impact. And the previews that we do conduct typically run from 8 to 9 or 8 to 10, or if we have a big event, we might see something here last 2, maybe 3 hours on a preview basis, but we're still only talking 20 people over that time period. So it's very low impact. When you sell the items, you have buyers now, and you may have had 300 bidders online, but you only had 50 items. So you're really going to probably have less than 50 bidders or buyers that come over and pick items up. We give them typically about a 4 or 5 hour window to come grab their items. And we start at 8 o'clock, sometimes 9, and give them that time to come over and pick up their items. And that impact's very, very low. We don't have a pile of cars sitting there at 8 o'clock trying to get into the driveway. It happens over a period of time. Ratio live versus online auctions, 98% of our sales for personal property are online now. We do, for the past many years, we've done 2 live events. They wouldn't be here per se. I'm talking about big events, but we may have a small event here if a customer wants it. We have clients that are old school and they want their items sold live, and we would try to accommodate them. But our business model is not out trying to turn this into a Saturday night auction hall. That's not our model. Live auctions, if we were to hold one, they typically all start at 9 or 10, and a sale here would only last probably 2 or 3 hours. If we were to do a timed online event utilizing this facility, thinking, okay, let's do a consignment sale, we might see something develop here on a monthly basis where I have 40 items that I sell monthly, or maybe every other 2 months. We're not certain what it could develop into, but we aren't looking to do the Saturday night auction hall. A live sale here, I could envision maybe a live sale happening at this site once every 2 or 3 years. I haven't done a live sale at my regular current office facilities. I'm not counting Beach Ridge and so forth, for probably 6 or 7 years. It's not an ongoing thing, but we want that option to take care of our customers should they ask for it. There were a couple other questions that somebody was asking. What would we do with the existing structures? And I think I understood that question to mean not just the building, but there's a lot of iron racking over there, which we would have that entire yard cleaned out. The seller that we're purchasing this from, he has to have the lot totally cleaned out. We wouldn't utilize any of their existing structures for storage of product and so forth. If you haven't been to this facility, it's full of scrap steel right now, and stock steel, and some new, some used, but a lot of it in racks and storage containers. The last question I think I saw there was environmental. What do we know about it? We know there is issues next door. We currently have a phase 1 in our hand, which told us do a phase 2 environmental. So we're in the process of doing that phase 2 right now to see just what problems may exist. So we don't have answers for you on that. No, they're in the process of doing that right now. We're not looking for a large environmental cleanup by any means, and it's contingent on our contract. So that's the questions I do recall you having. Were there any others?
No, actually, I think you did a good job there.
Thanks.
This is open for public comment. If there's anybody in the public who'd like to say anything. Are we paying attention? Okay. Okay, we'll open it up to the board. Anybody on the board has anything they want to add?
I just have a quick question. I am not particularly familiar with what's existing on this site today. Are there any, or yeah, can you, on the previous plan, it looked like there was something identified as an office building, and you were talking about, constructing a 1,500 square foot warehouse. Does your proposed warehouse building include any office space, or would you be retaining the office space that's there?
What's existing there is a 1,500 square foot metal sided and metal frame building. Our plan would be to re-side the building and re-roof the building. There are two rooms that are called offices. We would probably use them they have electric heat in that so-called office area. We would use it as storage if we had anything that needed heat or climate to it. There presently isn't water or septic to the site. But that wouldn't be an office that we would hold and do business as a traditional office. If we had a timed online sale and somebody needed to attend here and pick up an item, we would simply have a table for cash and checks. It's not an elaborate cash out process like we used to have at many of our facilities.
So
Simple.
no plans for any staff to be staffed on this site?
Not on
period of
not on a
time.
regular basis. We would have staff on site if we had to unload vehicles that were being stored there, if we had a preview, obviously, if we had an auction where people needed to come pick up their items after purchase, we'd have obviously staff. But if we did an on-site sale there, we have what is one of the other items I'd actually be storing here is a portable office that we would utilize if we had to do any larger scale office needs and checkout and that sort of thing.
And safe to assume you'd be looking to fence this in completely
I'm-
if
I'm
it's
sorry,
not
what'd you say?
That you, are you planning to fence in the property
It is currently fenced.
and that's like intact and you're planning to keep that?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that was an attractive feature for us.
Sure,
Yeah,
that's all I
yeah.
have.
I think I have a general understanding of the planned improvements. Is there any existing exterior lighting on site?
He has lighting on the buildings. I'm not aware of any other lighting other than potentially down by the gate. But it doesn't look functional.
And your hours of operation wouldn't require anything?
No, they wouldn't. Our hours of operation with the public is typically an 8 to 1, 8 to 3, or at the latest an 8 to 5 type situation. Anytime we would have to be there later in the evening would be dropping off something or picking up a plow truck because it's storming or that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
One of your last comments before was that you had environmental, or you recognized that there was environmental issues or problems next door.
Yeah.
Clarify that?
Sure. Of record, there was a VRAP that had been undertaken on the storage facility next door. There were PCBs and metals and minerals found on the site as a result of what everybody seems to surmise was the former Silver's Auto Yard and Graveyard, automobile graveyard. Yeah.
Sure.
A little more. Yeah, the site next door is the Running Hill Road Storage, who did some extensive work to clean up that site and paved it to try to cap it, and did a lot of cleanup. In the Red Brook Watershed Management Plan, we identified this area of town, this specific sites along the stretch as having higher levels of PCBs, as they mentioned. So it's definitely an area of concern for the town, and we're looking to try to clean up section of town and to improve the watershed water quality within Red Brook.
Right, because the zoning board is always, what they're looking at is to be, more in conformance. So it does
Yeah.
sound like you guys are slightly more in conformance to kind of what's being operated there. And I guess we're relying on you as to what's being operated there. It's just it's being used as a retail and storage yard for stock and scrap steel. And I don't know what and all that generates or.
If you were in your records, you indicate a map of where things need to be stored out on this facility. there's a lay down yards in specific areas. You have certain runoffs and water areas that drain. You can't store around those areas. So the town's gone ahead and looked at this and said to the existing business, you need to stay away from these areas because you don't want to put them in bog area and marsh area and the small wetlands and drain off. So what's in those areas that they are storing, there could be a 35-foot piece of steel for medium. Okay, there could be 100 of them, or it could be angle iron and steel. You may have seen the warehouse shelving at Home Depot, the big warehouse steel. A lot of times you'll have steel warehouse shelving over there that they cut and repurpose and use. And then just round stock, flat stock, sheets of steel. It's a steel yard. And it's laying out on telephone poles and on various propped up lumber that allows them to operate their diesel forklift around to pick things up and move it and load tractor trailers and trucks that come in there. So it's a steel scrapyard and not all brand new, but there is newer product there. He does some cutting, torch, he does shear cutting, and he does some torch cutting. On site, we don't have any need or use for that type of practice. And so we'd be picking up a lot of rust on the ground, which is not, what you would expect when you put iron out and steel outside. And we've done our environmental investigations on that to make sure that that's not going to contaminate the property or has contaminated the property. So we're waiting on our phase 2 as well to see just what that tells us and what that property, has it been impacted by the other site or where are we with it, So that's what we're doing right now.
I mean, I guess generally speaking, I think this is probably a little bit less invasive, a little bit less pollution, a little bit less traffic, maybe a little bit less hazardous. But I do think because, this is talking about it's adjacent to the brownfield site and the Red Brook watershed, this also seems like the perfect one of projects for maybe the Conservation Commission to have a look at and how to say about maybe, moving forward, the best use of this land. And that's, so at the end, it says recommendation options. It says, not approve. I think when you're talking about the DVA and giving it, we should approve it. I think my personal opinion is with approval, but maybe a condition to involve the Conservation Commission.
Stefan, have any comments regarding that?
I appreciate the comments about the Conservation Commission with the property. However, the zoning board of appeals will just be looking at the use. And so I think they might take that into consideration and move it elsewhere. I would envision that the only thing they could probably do with that recommendation is to perhaps make this a pending if they wanted to move it and then get a recommendation for the Conservation Commission, come back to the zoning board of appeals. But I'm not sure if they've ever use that commission in that way. So we could definitely see how it goes.
May I ask a question? Are you thinking of sending the Conservation Commission out there now to the existing use, even though it's worse than where I'm heading, or is this
I'm
just,
just generally referencing the state statute that says that Conservation Commission is supposed to be involved in all the planning aspects. And so when I see that, we're right here, the town's memo is saying, hey, this is the brownfield site, this is the Red Brook watershed, and I know in my conversations with them, this is all the stuff they care about. So I know zoning board doesn't do it, but I think I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So maybe down the road, they could have.
I see.
No, this won't come back for site plan unless they build something new. So the zoning board of appeals meeting is actually scheduled for tomorrow evening at the back-to-back. And so if you wanted to recommend approval with conditions, and the condition perhaps being that it goes to Conservation Commission for an opinion or a recommendation from them, I think that would be an appropriate. It just wouldn't move as quickly for the applicant, but I think that would be an appropriate response.
Any other comments? Did you want to say something?
I have another question. Do
Is this a
you,
quick question?
yes, do you intend to pave any, it doesn't look like the photo that was shown earlier, doesn't look like the majority of the site is paved. Do you intend to pave it?
No,
Okay. And it's been a long time since I've seen a phase 2 report. Are you expecting that will come back to you with recommendations on mitigation cleanup measures for the site?
yes, It'll identify problems. There's well drillings and monitoring going on now.
Okay.
They'll tell us what's in the ground or what they've been able to find.
And then.
The
how
question
or
would then
what-
begin, we would analyze that and decide if we wish to continue forward, to be quite frank with you, or not. And
Yeah.
if we continue forward, we go under a plan and a remediation program and we move forward. So we're looking at our options with that right now. Our idea is to be environmentally conscious. Our site, quite frankly, or our use of sites over the past 50 years, we've never had one violation, one spill, not one incident safety wise. We're very good stewards of the properties we lease, occupy, that we're on site conducting at other parties' businesses and our own facilities. We've cleaned up 3 properties that we've purchased over the past 50 years. So we fully understand conservation in aquifers. And I look at this and we'll see how it goes. I see other uses down the street and everywhere else that are doing worse than I'm going to do, and they exist now. So
Yeah.
maybe a conservation easement, conservation company ought to get down and look at them too. So just,
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess then my recommendation choice would be for an approval with conditions and pending the outcome of that phase 2 report and what that says and what that recommends for cleanup mitigations on site, which I think is a little bit in the same line of what you were thinking. My understanding is that the phase 2 report would sort of map out some of those mitigation measures and what could be done to clean up this site. And you know, it sounds like they'd be willing to do those things, you know, within reason, depending on what they are. If you don't
yeah.
have that back yet, then.
as it relates to the phase 2, we'll look at our phase 2 and we'll decide whether or not we want to go forward with the project or not.
Sure.
And if we don't, then we take our report home and we leave.
Yeah.
If we decide to go forward, then we'll have a remediation plan in place and we'll follow it according to the recommendations of the scientists. So it's just that simple. But we have a report that we're buying and paying for, and it'll be for our use.
That's all.
Okay. I actually, anything else, Chad? Okay. I actually just have a technical question, or a clarification. In the, under the staff comments, outdoor storage, the storage of vehicles or goods in an unroofed area for more than 24 hours. Would these vehicles be defined as those type of vehicles? I mean, in other words, I'm thinking of service vehicles that are used every day and everyday operations. And these are basically vehicles that could be there for more than 24 hours. So how would
The vehicles that are in their regular use for their business wouldn't be that, but he did say that some of these products and vehicles may be there for extended periods of time, so I'm not completely comfortable with that falling under that use category. I think we need to look at that maybe a little bit longer with this in-depth description. Eric, do you have the definition in front of you of what that use is?
So outdoor storage is defined as the keeping in an unroofed area of any goods, materials, merchandise, or vehicles in the same place for more than 24 hours. It does not include storage of goods, materials, or merchandise inside box trailers, semi-trailers, roll-off containers. And it goes on to talk about other types of containers. And then any such storage in roof containers would be governed by our performance standards for accessory storage containers. So
that's okay. It's more than 24 hours. And so his regular service vehicles would be fine too. Sorry.
My question, the existing permit that is in place now for the site, is it not a auto graveyard permit?
I'm not entirely sure.
I think it is. It's an automobile graveyard permit that he has. I saw a copy of it that he provided me. I haven't seen it from the town, but it was a town permit for an automobile graveyard. It's allowed them the ability to store vehicles outside, junk cars, not even licensed or registered or running. Not even insured for that matter, under the existing permit for this site. We're clearly not looking to open up a junkyard or even apply for that permit. Just simply trying to store a couple of the town's cars for a few days. That's really all we're looking at. So I get it. But I think you do have that permit in place right now.
So tell me your question again, Roger.
Well, the way I read this, in the RF zone, you can't store vehicles or goods in an unroofed area for more than 24 hours. I'm focusing on the vehicles and I'm thinking about, it seemed to me the intention of that was not to have an an ongoing business, having a number of vehicles stored over 24 hours, in the RF zone versus,
So this is an existing non-conforming site.
Yeah.
And this request is to change to another non-conforming site.
Yeah.
And so your point is full circle. Your point is correct. If it was a brand new site,
okay,
you couldn't do this. But it's an existing non-conformity, and so they're going to the zoning board of appeals to request a different non-conformity, if you will. And to your point, it's a little less invasive than the existing non-conforming, I think. And that's, I think that is the confusing part. So they would fall under, they're using the long-term, the outdoor storage definition that Eric read, but it's an existing non-conforming moving to another non-conforming use is what the request is for.
okay. I think we're all set then. So this is basically an advisory opinion to the zoning board of appeals. And my sense is that it's going to be approved with conditions. Right? Okay. We're all set?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for staff's perspective, when we communicate this with the codes folks and Brian Longstaff, who staffs the ZBA, just to make sure that we know the particular condition. I know we talked about, having that phase 2 information and making sure that that's followed through. So I don't know if the board wants to advise of that specifically or just sort of reference what was discussed earlier tonight. I guess that's the only clarification I would request.
Well,
the board.
let me ask you this, would the zoning board of appeals approve this without that phase 2?
It's quite possible that they could approve the use, the non-conforming
Yeah.
use without that. But it's also it's very appropriate for this board to recommend approval of the non-conforming use with the condition that the phase 2 environmental outcome be completed,
Okay,
the recommendations. And the applicant has stated he has it under
Yeah,
contract.
yeah,
So if
sure.
the phase 2 comes back terribly.
Yeah.
I believe that the contract may be null and void.
Yeah.
But if it comes back doable, then you will be able to get those
Okay.
things done. Do you have a timing on the phase 2?
We do, yes. Within probably another 4 weeks.
Okay,
We're under time constraints as well.
okay.
okay.
And so that may be important tomorrow at the meeting, and from this condition, that board, who's also in our department, may move it forward to pending to the next meeting, depending on that outcome. They may not want to, don't mean to speak for them, but they may not want to approve a use if they don't know that it's going to be actually used, depending on that phase 2. So that potentially
it.
could come up.
I guess it begs the question, if I wanted to buy Goldstein steel and start selling stock steel tomorrow under the junkyard permit, and would I be required to do a phase 2?
If you want to take on the existing use and just do the exact same things, quite possibly no. Yeah.
But if I want to improve it and so forth. I have to. Okay, I get it. It's all right. It's normal life.
We all set?
All right,
So thank you.
I sit down.
Good luck. Okay, item number 7, Crossroads Holdings LLC requests a site plan review for Hackamore Place Apartments 2. The project would create 3 15-unit apartment buildings in a town center residential district of the Downs. The property is further identified as Assessors Map R52 Lot 4. Mr. Bacon. Oh, I'm
no,
sorry.
no worries.
I was just gonna bypass you.
So to build on what Roger had said about the project, after the last planning board review of Hackamore Apartments 2, the applicant has provided some renderings as requested showing the visual screening behind the proposed garage. This was one of the things that the board talked about in addition to updated building kind of color schemes, as well as a plan that shows the off-street parking space that could be constructed in the future, so that it meets the off-street parking requirements. Staff recommends at this point that either that parking space be built and that note removed, or that the space is taken off the plan entirely. I think that saves a lot of time and, getting another crew out there and removing some curbing and other infrastructure and whatnot. And with all that information provided, a draft motion has been given to the board with some conditions. There are some waivers that include reducing the minimum aisle width from 25 to 24 feet, as well as conditions to revise plans as discussed tonight. Remove or build the additional parking space, pay the traffic impact and recreation fees, provide the town a stormwater maintenance agreement, formal Portland Water District and sanitary district approvals, as well as work with E911 addressing to formalize the addresses of the buildings. With that, I would turn it back to the board.
And Mr. Bacon.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Eric did a nice introduction and the board covered this extensively at your last meeting. I would just weigh in on, I think the one thing staff's raising is the parking space at this point. And since we've updated the site plan to show the parking space, we would just elect to build it at this time in this particular context in the board discussion at the last meeting. But other than that, the board should have as Eric indicated, we tried to be responsive to those questions that the board had the last meeting in terms of architecture, screening of the back of the garage, and a few other minor adjustments. So I think with that, I'll turn it back to the board and answer any questions if there are any.
I gotta repeat all that now. Anybody, nobody from the board?
So just to clarify, your intent is to build the one parking
The
space.
one space we
in question
added, yeah,
On site.
yeah.
As opposed to on street. And so is the number of on street, because there are on street parking spaces proposed here, is that changing at all or those
No.
are staying the same?
No, the on-street spaces would stay the same. In fact, most of them are already approved and on the subdivision plan.
Okay. For what it's worth, when the site plan that I looked at with the parking table, it looked as though you were providing 5 spaces over what was tallied as being required. And so I don't know if there was a particular breakdown maybe there on what's provided offsite on street versus on site. But based on the usage here and its proximity to on-street parking, I think that's a good, I understand that the ordinance language is perhaps a little bit conflicting. But that the particular language for this zone really sounds like on-street parking is encouraged and preferred. So you can go ahead and build your one space wherever you'd like to, but that would, I think projects like this in this location, this is a good opportunity to utilize that. That's just my 2 cents. But you're welcome to do either.
Anybody else? Okay, the only thing I would add is I think the plan you have for the back of the garages with the fencing and the shrubbery, I like that.
Great. Thank you.
For whatever that's worth. So with no other comments, I have a motion here.
Thanks, Tony.
I move to approve the project entitled Hackamore Place Apartments 2, proposed by Hackamore Place Apartments 2 LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Goral Palmer dated 9/26/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The proposal would construct 3 15-unit residential apartment buildings and 1 garage building. The proposal also includes off-street parking, landscaping provisions and pedestrian amenities and is located within lot 42 of the town center residential subdivision at the Downs. Waivers. Number 1, section 4.d.2 to reduce the minimum drive aisle width from 25 feet to 24. Conditions. 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, revise plan sets as discussed at the 10/11/22 planning board meeting. B, revise plan sets to remove the call out of the future parking space east of building 3. This space will either be constructed or removed from the plan sets. If the space is removed, an updated plan set needs to be provided. Pay the traffic impact fees, which total $24,010. D, pay the recreation fees, which is $500 per unit. E, provide formal approvals from the Scarborough Sanitary District and the Portland Water District. F, work with the town's E911 addressing officer in regards to addressing the development. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. All planning modifications are to be completed prior to scheduling the pre-construction meeting. Is there a second?
No second.
Oh, Karen? Karen, okay. Doreen? So
Chad
any,
Reed?
any comments? No? Right.
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Roger Beeler,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Karen Chu.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, item number 9. Next Gen Development LLC requests a site plan amendment review to construct a 9,900 square foot, 2-story mixed-use building on lot 35 in the Innovation District of the Downs. The property is further identified as Assessors Map U53, lot 35.
So.
Eric.
So to kind of recap what Roger said, Next Gen is in front of the board with a proposal for a mixed-use structure that would have some residential units up top, access via Innovation Way. It's 22, that total 22 units, and then some commercial warehousing type spaces in the rear of the structure, access via the private way. Since the last meeting, the applicant has provided several pedestrian elements and architectural changes to accent the residential entrance to the building. And as of today, has submitted revised plans showing the construction and grading plans of the private way. If the board would like to move this project ahead today, staff has come up with some conditions that would be attached to any approval. Which would be to revise the plan sets as discussed tonight. Any revisions, staff would need adequate time to review that prior to issuance of any building permit. And these include but are not limited to perpendicular alignment with IDEX, extending the proposed sidewalk, showing the proposed curb, showing the drainage structures along the curb, providing auto turn figures, paying the traffic impact and recreation fees, formal utility approvals from the Portland Water District. A couple of comments from our peer traffic engineer review team at Traffic Solutions, addressing the private way and driveway and signage. And then prior to certificate of occupancy, constructing the private way, whether it be the Downs team, the applicant or otherwise. So with that, I will turn it back to the board.
Ms. St. Clair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nancy St. Clair. I'm here tonight on behalf of Next Gen Development LLC. We were last before you folks on September 19th, and we had quite a lengthy discussion about the site and some of the items associated with it, with the end result being a request to provide improved connectivity with Innovation Way. And so what I'd like to do is start our presentation with Keith Smith and a discussion of the changes that we made to the plan to address some of those comments from you folks. So I'm going to turn over to Keith. Going back to the old digital ways.
So while Nancy's doing that, so I'm Keith Smith Landscape Architecture. So I've done the landscape plan for the entire site. Thank you, Nancy. So last time we were here, the board had discussed trying to create a better relation between the building and Innovation Way. So one of the ways we provided to do that is increase the pedestrian connectivity and emphasize the center of the building, which is the public gathering space. So as you go down the sidewalk of Innovation Way, and we've tried to introduce some character elements as well. Instead of a traditional signage, we're coming up with a monument, like a 2x2 by like 4 foot high concrete monument. Branding and the details of that will come with the signage package, but it's going to be kind of a continuum. So there'll be where the existing sign was right before the entrance, there'll be a column there that will have some signage and branding. Just on the other side of the entrance, it'll be the same, and there'll be the opportunity to say, residents only, traffic for, XYZ, proceed to the next right. And then when you go beyond that, at the center of the property, there's going to be the pedestrian access, which there will be a smaller column, with similar branding. It's intended to have a bench, and it'll be concrete. So it's going to transition to materials. So it's going to be concrete that goes all the way across the bituminous side driveway, and meets in the center of the gathering space that's going to have a pergola cover over it. Inside of the gathering space is going to be some grills and seating and outdoor elements, centrally located between each end of the building where the pedestrian access is. Along the front buffer, it's extensively landscaped. I've kept the landscape a little lower, between the driveway and the pedestrian access, and then provided a little bit taller buffer a little bit beyond that. In the far corner, there's snow storage. As I talked about last meeting, all around the parking, is perennials and grasses, which can handle the snow load without breaking, like shrubs, etc. So, and that's indicated on where the snow load areas are on the plans. I mentioned there'll be a bench to the left side of the front access. And in developing this, I think you'll see in the application, we eliminated a parking space to provide this walkway, pedestrian way from the sidewalk to the building. And along with that, what we were able to do is shift the existing parking toward the entrance, I know there was concern about the turnaround at the end of the parking. So we were able to enlarge on the one side, the turnaround space. The bike racks, as previously, are at each end of the building, the kind of flank the ends of the building. The planting changes are really only associated with the changes on the plan. No major planting changes were done. There was the one question of the lilac that I had proposed. It is not an invasive type of lilac, so we'll be fine. And one additional thing was the lighting at the end of the building. In the previous photometric plan, we didn't have any lighting at the dumpster. So if you saw your updated lighting plan, a new fixture has been placed at the end of the building that will provide lighting for the dumpster area. So I think, from a pedestrian connectivity, just a character, the elements are going to blend in with the innovation district. If you know, like the gathering space further down, it's concrete and wood. And so we're trying to play off the character of the innovation drive and, draw people into the site in an attractive fashion.
So to follow on with just one more item with regard to the discussion that we had last time, with regard to the building, is the architectural plans have been updated in response to the discussions that we had with you folks to be able to improve and widen out the two entry doors that are for the residential units, which are on the second floor. So each end of the building, on the west end and on the east end, there is a passage door that accesses the stairs to the second floor. Those doors on the updated elevations reflect now a side light. That area has been widened out to make it more residential appealing, if you will, and really highlight the area that is for the residents to come into the building on the north side. So you'll see in the updated elevations that those doors have been widened out with the addition of a side light on each of the two doors. So going back to Keith's plan, a couple of the changes, as Keith noted, we did remove one parking space as a result of the changes that were made to add that central walkway connecting up to Innovation Way. And so as a result of that, we also provided in your packet an updated stormwater scorecard, which reflects the very slight revision in the impervious cover associated with that change. It also reflects the change to add a connection for the gated emergency access that was discussed at the last meeting. There is a gate shown on the plan now. With the last comments that we received on the project from the fire department, that gate is not equipped with a Knox box, but a Knox padlock. So it was the type of lock is associated with what the fire department wants for that. But it is a gated emergency access on that northeasterly corner of the site. The plan that you see up on the board on the screen for you, revised today's date, reflects clarification that staff had asked us to provide with regard to the private way located to the east of the property. Those of you who were part of the review of the IDEX plans may remember this area and the sort of, I would call it a C shape, if you will, of an access coming from the cul-de-sac at the end of Innovation Way. There's a section that comes down and curves off to the east, which is a point of access for IDEX for their site. As part of that IDEX plan, you'll see on that image there, they had, and it's underneath that shaded area where we're proposing our access to the south part of our site. they had a small segment with trailhead parking. And the trailhead parking, as we noted in our application, would be revised as part of our plan. And that trailhead parking is now located further south, as shown on that plan. But one of the questions that was raised by staff was, who has the right to do this? Who has the responsibility to do this? And are the parties in agreement? So we have provided for you folks a letter from Crossroads, which holds the ownership of the private way, authorizing us and clarifying that we do have the right to do the improvements that are shown on the plan. And the IDEX has their right to do the improvements that they had shown on their approved site plan. We have presented the plan to IDEX to show what we're proposing to do south of their entrance. We are not proposing to modify their entrance, was approved on their site plan, but we are proposing to change from that entrance location south as shown on our plans. So the graphic that you have before you shows an area that's shaded, and it's the shaded area includes the apron for the dumpster on the east side of the site, the access to the southerly entrance to our site, and then the extended area where the parking for the trailhead is now located. So the area that is shaded would be something that would be constructed concurrent with the construction of the improvements for this lot. They would be constructed by the applicant. And the improvements that are not shaded, if you will, in that private way, are the improvements that IDEX is building for their site. So we looked at their plans, we reviewed information that was provided to us for their construction plans for that site. We looked at the spot grades and the design for that area to make sure that our interface was correct, that we graded us according to what they had on their approved site plan. And so we are now proposing to show that, excuse me, that area shaded on our plan as part of our program. So that was the clarification. Hopefully that will help you folks. We did receive an email response from IDEX that they had reviewed the plans and they don't take an issue with what we're proposing to do. So we do have authorization from both Crossroads, which owns the private way, and IDEX, which is the other player in the improvements for that. So we did receive some additional staff comments late last week on the submittals that we made. And we do have some information for you folks to address that. And I'll just kind of go over those quickly. I already noted about the request for the fire department padlock, the Knox padlock for that. We were asked to provide additional information with regard to the turning maneuvers that we provided for the application package. The exhibits, we provided exhibits for a large pickup truck, which was part of the request made by the B&L, Bill Bray at B&L, with regard to his request for a large pickup truck to maneuver in the northerly parking area. So that truck is a 19-foot long vehicle. It is the size of a large pickup truck, much larger than what we would anticipate the tenants would have for vehicles using the parking area, but we did provide a maneuver for that. The design speed for that maneuver is 5 miles an hour. And that is the same speed that the other vehicles using the turn maneuvers have. So the tractor trailer truck, as we noted in our response previously, is a WB50 tractor trailer truck. It's a standard ash tow size. It's about 55 feet long overall. One of the comments that B&L had made to us was that they'd like confirmation from the applicant and their tenant that that's the anticipated size vehicle, maximum size vehicle that would be using that area. And that is correct to that. And we have noted that with the applicant as well as their tenant that the WB50 is an appropriate size for them. The waste removal truck for the site is a 30-foot long vehicle. And it is the typical size of a waste removal truck that has the forks on the front that lift the dumpster up and into the back. The It's anticipated that Casella will be their waste delivery provider, if you will, their contract holder. And they have the ability to do a specialized service for a site to make sure that they get the correct vehicle and driver for the maneuvering requirements of the site. So they do have someone on board who is keyed up to do those maneuvers appropriately for them. So with that, I'd like to open it up to you folks and see if you have any further questions or comments that we would like to discuss tonight.
Thank you. This is open for public comment. If there's anybody in the public who wishes to speak. You're disappointing night. Okay. The board, does board have any comment? Chad?
So with the residential units, how's mail and package services? Where are they stored or delivered?
What is it, Peter?
Peter Lavoy from Missouri Bros representing the applicant. The mail is in the kiosk at the center. That's where all the mail is going to go. Packages would. I guess we hadn't really thought about that all the way through, but we may be able to add some type of a space for them, maybe a vestibule in one of the ends, but I do believe you're correct and bring that up. That may be an issue, but we can work through it.
You all set? Down here.
I just have a couple of questions. One has to do with the addition of the driveway at the gate that's been added. And just looking quickly at the plans, it looks like some of the grading there is either going to be very flat or almost pitching back onto the site. And so I wasn't sure, I'm not sure if what the overall drainage plan is for that portion of the private way. There aren't any catch basins or anything shown on this plan anyway. And then it's sort of related to that, whether or not there may be an opportunity to raise up that section of the sidewalk as it comes in front of the gate. So the thought here being that, for the incredibly infrequent amount of times that this driveway essentially would be accessed by emergency vehicles, maybe the sidewalk could be kept at a consistent height instead of ramping it down for the driveway and then back up and then immediately back down for the two ramps shown at the corner here. And that not only is that, sort of provides a better pedestrian facility, but could actually help with some of the drainage acting as a little bit of a berm too. So I know that was an addition that you made to this plan. That was something that caught my attention, as well as the sidewalk configuration at the corner of the property closest to the cul-de-sac. The north arrow is outside my view here. But it looks like that's over the private property parcel line. So I just didn't know if there was easement language included anywhere to allow that public facility to kind of cut that corner.
So a couple of things on that. You asked the question about drainage. And so if you look closely at the entrance to the northerly parking area, just on what would be the east or the southeast corner of the island, that is by the entrance, there is a catch basin in the parking lot that is designed to collect the easterly section of the lot, including that area that would slope up towards where that new connector is for the gated emergency access. On the private way side, there is a catch basin out in Innovation Way that, based on the review of the design that was shown on the IDEX plan. My understanding is that piece of the driveway is intended to flow down into that catch basin located near the corner of the, what would be the intersection point between the cul-de-sac and the private way. There is a catch basin that is shown in that corner. So to answer your question about looking at opportunities to perhaps leave the sidewalk at a uniform height and not ramp down to that crossing, we could certainly take a look at that to make sure that it would work grading wise for that and allow a vehicle not to have to kind of go up and over. But we could certainly look at that as an alternative. So I think you asked one more question and I apologize.
A potential sidewalk easement for the corner of the property closest to the.
So
cul-de-sac.
the sidewalk that's shown right at that corner is actually the configuration that was shown on the approved IDEX plans. So the easement, if you will, for that walkway would be something that would burden the applicant's site. And so obviously we're showing it on our plan. We're certainly aware of it and can provide that easement for that if necessary, but that was on the approved IDEX plans.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Well, they have given us plan sets showing that it would be constructed and we did get those today, so staff hasn't had a ton of time to review them. So that's why for any potential approval, we would need to, do a thorough review of those materials as conditioned.
What Eric said is true. No, we have a very lengthy motion prepared if you all would like to move forward on this, but it does cover quite a few of the immediate things that we see, our traffic engineer, our town engineer and staff see that we need to, maybe we will need a revised plan. Eric has that available if you would like to take a look at it, but it's a lot of conditions and maybe more. It's really up to the board at this point.
Let me ask the board. Basically, the issue is just
Yes.
staff feel that they can resolve this. Oh, geez. Can you play that back?
I do. I think if you all are satisfied with all of your other conditions and questions and what remains is staff working with the applicant to shore up the private way and the sidewalk extensions and curb and gutter and stormwater on that area, I think that could be a consent agenda item.
Okay, so go with the consent.
Yeah, that's certainly the board's call.
Okay,
Yeah, I would, with the number of conditions and the fact that staff hasn't been able to review something that was just submitted today, I would feel uncomfortable with a full-on approval, but I think providing additional time for that review and a consent agenda item makes sense to me.
are you all also with that too, Chad? And Karen? Okay. We all set?
I was trying to read the notes, I'm sorry. I think a lot of those, if they were included in the memoranda that we received on Friday, we've already taken steps to address
These were
those.
based on the plans that we received this morning.
Okay,
So these
Very
are
well.
just some of the things we immediately saw that we wanted to take care of. So these are all new things as of today.
I would add one thing, perhaps we can maybe strike it as a condition of approval. Formal PWD approval, we did receive the sanitary district approval. The Portland Water District approval that we received, it was a an ability to serve letter with a lot of detailed information contained in it. And the district approved this plan a year ago, and stubs were provided to this lot. So the end conclusion in the ability to serve letter was that the contractor provide the application materials to build the site, not to approve the site, but actually to build the site. So we've sort of passed that need to have any other follow-up from PWD. So in our eyes, and I think in PWD's eyes, this is done and approved. We have everything that we need because we're tying into something that physically exists now. They don't have to approve that connection. So perhaps that would be an item that might be able to be taken off the list.
And Nancy, yeah, and Nancy, I'm certainly happy to
Yep.
work on that. Yep.
Okay, so we're all set.
I could just clarify, I think I missed, I'm trying to remember back. So if we're talking about kind of doing our review, I just wanted to make sure I picked up on the board's comments. I know we talked about looking at the sidewalk at the emergency access onto the private way. Wasn't there another one that you mentioned? Oh, easement. Thank you.
The corner.
I just wanted to make sure I got all this. No, thanks.
We all set? Right. We don't have to do anything else.
No, we'll put this as a consent item for presumably the next meeting.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10. Crossroads Holdings LLC requests a site plan review for the construction staging area associated with the work on lot 1 of the Innovation District at Scarborough Downs. The property is further identified as Assessors Map U53 Lot 1.
So I don't really have much to add beyond what Roger said. The project would include clearing, grubbing, stumping, and stabilization of the lot to serve as a sort of lay down and staging yard for Costco. Staff's only comment on this project was that site distances be shown, and that could be a condition of approval. And with that, I would turn it back to the board.
Thank you. The applicant?
Drew Gagnon with Goral Palmer, representing Crossroad Holdings LLC, the owner of Lot 1C. So I don't have much more to add other than this lot was subdivided as part of the 8th amended subdivision. It's directly adjacent to the Costco project that's on your screen right now. And essentially, this lot is wooded and undisturbed currently right now, and the applicant's proposing to grub it, grade it according to the grading plan, which would convey runoff to the expanded stormwater pond to the north. Essentially as a lay down staging area for the Costco building. With the preload that's going on with the Costco, which is essentially a big pile of dirt going on it. They just need some room for the actual building construction, which is what we're providing for this. There was a question regarding the construction entrance off of Innovation Way. Essentially, we're showing that so that we're anticipating the stockpile area to be kind of tight and full, just given the amount of equipment and material they're going to be using. So we're just trying to provide a relief for that for construction vehicles in and out. We'd be happy to show site distance meeting, site plan driveway criteria and driveway separations as part of a condition of approval. With that, we're seeking approval tonight and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is open for public comment if there's anybody out there. Not seeing any. Does the board have any comments on this?
I just have a question, and maybe I missed this, I apologize. What's the long-term plan here? Or,
The-
sorry, at some point it won't be,
Correct. This is
that's loaded. You don't have.
big
to-
word here.
At some point it won't be used for storage and laydown. So is there a reforestation plan, or will it be seeded or what?
So the long-term plan is that the lot's going to get developed when that comes forward with
Sure.
a user. If in the event, and I don't think we're anticipating this, but in the event that the stockpile is no longer needed and the laydown area is no longer needed, it would be revegetated so that it's not sitting there as gravel past the Costco opening date and such like that. And once the contractor's getting out of there, so that would be the intention. I think, again, speaking on behalf of the applicant a little bit, I think the intention is that a project will move forward on that lot at some point, which would come back to the board as part of a site plan application. So
Okay, sure. And so, the intent is to not use this for sort of active construction support beyond the completion of the Costco project. Is that what you're saying?
correct.
That's all I have.
Just procedurally, this is a site plan application. Is that correct?
What?
A site plan application, which means they have certain criteria they have to meet.
This is a subdivision, right?
Well, why don't I just go on? Because I
Okay,
guess,
yeah.
so I'm trying to understand what this application is and what qualifications and what things they have to meet. Because
Okay.
landscaping and buffering is one of the qualifications for site plan application, correct? And so I think Jen kind of touched on, my concern is, you're clearing the whole lot, but how long is that lot going to be cleared for? Because this is a temporary thing, but we're clearing it, but how long are we gonna be looking at a dirt lot, not knowing what the future development is? So is it a site plan application? Are they looking for a waiver for the buffering and vegetation? Or, so I do, again, have concerns about this empty lot ending up being there completely unvegetated, maybe more sellable if it's completely cleared and not being revegetated. So I just kind of wanted clarification maybe from the town as to what the application was.
Well, if you want me to start, 'cause I know there's a planner sign, but I guess from my point of view, so it is a site plan. It's on the agenda as a site plan review. It kind of fell in a weird category. It is part of a larger subdivision, which included stormwater and all of the other kind of criteria we've already gone through for this site. It was part of that bigger picture. So all of that, those pieces were included. However, as far as like looking at kind of that open, as you mentioned, like an open, stark kind of gravel area, they are limited on what areas they can have open. So that's something that my staff looks at with them and the construction team. So they would need to button that up. To your point, it might not be full grown trees, but it would be stabilized in some respect, and they'd have to either mulch the whole thing and vegetate it, or some respect. It can't sit for extended period of time, but it's not what you're probably envisioning as what a buffer looks like or landscaping. But I will say from my point of view, it would be stable. And I know that's probably not what you're getting at, but that's kind of all I can speak to at this point. But like, other than maybe they want to speak to the pieces from the subdivision that you guys addressed. This is a site plan under the subdivision though.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I look at this as an application to use the property as a staging area, temporary or not, is an application. I think I just want to understand temporariness.
We can speak to the timeframe as well. So typically, this type of application actually is a subdivision application. The reason we came forward with a site plan is because the lot's already created. And the reason we didn't present this plan during subdivision was we didn't have our DEP permit in place when you got subdivision approval. So we couldn't show a grading plan on top of the wetlands and without the stormwater approved. So I think kind of like by default, Angela's saying we came in through site plan to get approval for basically a short-term use during the life of the construction of the Costco, to just grade the site and then use it as proposed. Our intention, and there's already interest in the lot, is to probably during the construction phase be coming forward to you with the site plan application. If not, it'll really be similar to the other lots that are in the innovation district that have been kind of brought up to grade, have been leveled along the street. You know, there's actually street trees already in place. They're not like, it's not a hedgerow, so it doesn't hide the site, but there's already landscaping along the street that's been completed. So, and it's gonna look like if there is a time period where, you know, there's not active use, it's gonna look like another lot that's kind of being marketed in the innovation district, to give you a sense of that. It'll be comparable. But to your point, it's unusual site plan application. It's really more of a subdivision, but fell under that category. So if there are some waivers that we need, I guess we'd request those, recognizing this is very much a temporary use, and then you'd see the final product hopefully in the near future through a site plan.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
So.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add, I just wanted to, this is primarily for the public. You mentioned, preloading the Costco site. Is that gonna have to go through just out of curiosity, the same, planning that the Acura dealership is going through? Gonna have a large preloading for an extended period of time?
Correct. Yeah, it's very similar to what you see on the corner there of Higas and Payne Road. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know people are eager for that to be built, so just thought I'd get that out there. Anything else? Okay, I have a motion. I move to approve the project entitled The Downs Lot 1C Innovation District proposed by Crossroads Holding LLC as depicted on the plan set prepared by Goro Palmer dated 9/19/22 with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The proposal will utilize previously subdivided lot 1C of the Innovation District subdivision as a laydown / staging area for the construction of Costco on lot 1. The proposed construction includes clearing, grubbing, stumping, and stabilization of the lot, which will follow the approved grading of the subdivision. Conditions. 1, revise the plan set to show the site distances from the construction site, the construction entrance to lot 1C. Prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. The meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. All plan modifications are to be completed prior to scheduling a pre-construction meeting. Do I have a second?
A second.
Karen, second by Karen.
Jen
Any
Reed?
comment? Okay,
Yes.
Roger Beeling,
yes.
Jennifer Lead,
Yes.
Karen Chu.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11. Firehouse Village LLC requests a site plan amendment review to make a facade treatment change, to make facade treatment changes to the former police station area of Firehouse Village. The property is further identified as 246 US Route 1, Assessors Map 43, Lot 56. Eric.
Thank you. Thank you. Firehouse Village has contacted staff and made a application to the planning board to change some of the architectural features of the Firehouse Village development. The project was originally approved with architecture squaring off the roof line and using fiber cement boards to create a modern aesthetic look. As proposed, the applicant would paint the existing, I believe they're cement blocks, terracotta color, as well as include some black painting there. So with that, staff has a motion of approval for the board, but with that, I'd turn it back to the board.
Okay, the applicant.
Hi, I'm Jack Soley from Firehouse Village. And so pretty straightforward. We originally were looking at sort of making sort of contemporary look of the building. And as we have renovated and filled both the fire station and the police station, we've realized on several different levels that, first of all, the original existing architecture, though unique, I'll say, is actually something that is very familiar to folks in Scarborough, and it has its own sort of identity that has created recognition for people within Scarborough. So what we looked at, instead of actually trying to create a modern building out of a 1969 building, is we decided instead to try to figure out a way, and this was part of the planning board when we originally came. Part of their interest was integrating all of the pieces of the development together. The latest piece of development is the building of 31 units for 55 plus affordable housing, Avesta, which will also have the terracotta paint on the ground floor. We've already painted the rear of the fire station the same terracotta color. And so we feel that by painting this facade, so it's actually two facades, both sides of the building, but just as you see, it's the sort of projecting facade. By painting those facades the same terracotta color, it will then tie all three major structures together into one development. I can't remember, I think the person that was on the board that asked for us is no longer on to coordinate color-wise, is no longer on the board, but I know there's a lot of notes from that original meeting asking us to paint the police station and fire station and Avesta building all the same color. So we're actually responding to that, but also responding to the fact that now that we've lived with this building for 2+ years, that it's sort of growing on us, frankly, in terms of its identifying qualities. So if you have any questions, willing to respond.
Okay, thank you. This is again open for public comment. If anybody, sure. Step right up. Yes, you have to.
Hi, my name is Kat Powers and I live at 10 Fairfield Road, which is faces the backside of this building, where the parking lot currently is. And I was here tonight primarily just to get information. I was concerned about the facade of the building because it really does look very outdated. And my neighbors and I were looking forward to something a little bit more updated. And so I'm here really for informational purposes tonight, but in our opinion, I'll speak for myself, the profile of the old facade, the one that's currently there, looks very 70s, looks very outdated. And I guess we really liked I really liked what they did to the fire station part of the building. I do have some concerns about painting the brick or the concrete. I think it's appropriate for the backside of the fire station. That is not street view. I think it looks a little, I don't know, it looks like a inexpensive fix for the concrete pavement, concrete blocks that are currently there. So that was a concern. Again, I think it works great for the back alley where the fishermen hang out and such on the backside of the fire station. My house, along with the house closest to the Route 1, we're looking at this every day. We're looking at the backside of this every day. And again, the facade on the backside is very similar to this. And I guess the concrete columns, I was wondering what was going to happen with those, if they were going to get framed out or, bricked or something, because it just doesn't look sophisticated, I guess. So I think they did a great job on the Route 1 side, But as far as our residents on Fairfield, it just, I guess, I feel like it needs a little bit more detail to it. That's it.
Thank you. Respond just briefly. So these concrete columns are actually no longer there. So just to be clear, we've removed all of the light posts that are there. So there's one concrete column on either side that remains.
And on the other side.
One on each side,
Yeah.
yes. There's two concrete columns. We've removed all the other ones. We heard loud and clear actually from the planning board, actually at that time, also said that those look dated, the lighting posts, and so we removed those as part of the plan. This concrete column is actually structural though. It's not, these were just for lights and aesthetic. This one's actually structural. It supports the corner of the building.
It could be cosmetically enhanced. Not saying that it needs to leave, but it could be bricked or it could be enhanced.
Roger, we also have someone online and I apologize, but I think the audience probably couldn't hear your comments if you're not at the podium. So that's,
You have to speak at the podium.
and there are others, there's others online listening too. I just wanted to make sure everybody could hear you. And there's also someone with their hand raised online.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm Kat Powers. I live at 10 Fairfield Road. And we look at the back side of this building. And again, the facade is a little bit different. This is the very ornamental one. But it's pretty much the same structure with the roof line that looks outdated. And I understand it's, historical building, but this isn't a 100-year-old building. This was something that was put up, I think, in the 70s, but at any rate, it feels outdated. Our concern, I will say my concern also was the fact that those concrete columns, I understand that 2 of those have been removed on, is that Libby or Westcott Road? It's on the other side. But on the Fairfield side, there is still a column there. And we were hoping that maybe something could be, bricked around or something to make it look a little bit more updated. And the other concern I had was just painting the concrete. The rear side of the old fire station has been painted. The concrete bricks have been painted, which I think is perfectly applicable for the back side of a building. Again, that's where there's a dumpster and that's where some of the employees hang out and have their lunch or whatever. But for the front of the police station, I just feel like it needs to be a little bit more elaborate, I guess, would be my comment.
Okay, thank you. And the person online? Is there still somebody online?
I also misspoke. It's actually 1989. It's not 1969 was the fire station. The police station is 1989.
Jenny, we should be able to hear you. Looks like you're muted.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Jenny Pillsbury. I live at 13 Fairfield Road with my family, and we are the gray brick ranch that is directly next to the property. And we would just like to ask folks to keep in mind that this is a family neighborhood and very residential with this commercial property that was rezoned next to us. And we'd really just like it to look nice. And we hope that you don't go back on promises that were made for our neighborhood and for the families that live there and have lived there for a long time. And we're dealing with a lot of construction mess and workers there out at 1 a.m. a couple weeks ago, waking us up before we had to go to work. We deal with a lot of mess and a lot of noise. So please, I just ask for you to think about the folks that live in the neighborhood and are dealing with all of this on a very daily basis and the added traffic that we're dealing with in our neighborhood and on Route 1, and just to keep making it look nice and professional, please. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, any comments from the board? Would you like to start?
I have a couple questions. The first is about, so obviously changing that facade to the original comparison photo that you had would have likely entailed probably a replacement of the material, I'm assuming.
So
Or was your intent to always, was your initial intent to change the shape of the entrance and paint it anyway? This view.
when you say the entrance, you mean the whole, the whole building?
This
Yeah, so-
particular.
So as you
facade
can
entrance.
see, we were responding to the planning board to try to keep the colors consistent. And so that's why it actually reflects in this building here. It's similar to what we're doing, to what we're proposing. So, and frankly, I'll be complete. I went to architecture school. I was never in favor of this. This was something that an architect proposed while we were busy with the project. And, I also wasn't completely enamored with this. It's grown on me, frankly, just because it's placemaking. People recognize it. People understand. We now have a raised daycare upstairs, and they appreciate it because people know what the building is when they put it in their marketing. They understand the old police station. So what we're trying to do is integrate what we have, and we're trying to create something that's attractive as well. And thank you for your comments on the rest of the fire station. We've spent a lot of energy and time trying to make something that's presentable, that was essentially a fire station and police station, very industrial. So this, and it's not an inexpensive fix. I will say we're using a Sherwin-Williams Luxol product. This entire facade has to be sanded with 80 grit sandpaper before they can paint, because it's actually a smooth concrete block. And so I don't know how long painters will be there, but it's expected to be quite a while just sanding. And I'm sorry, that will create more noise, certainly. And then to apply the paint. But again, it's a 1989 building. It's something that's recognizable. And to me, this represents more mediocrity. And I'm looking for things that create more sense of place. And so to me, this may not be your idealized architecture. It certainly wasn't mine. But it is a sense of place, and it is something that people recognize and remember. And it's definitely not historic. 1989 is not historic, but it's what's been there for 30 plus years. And I think people have grown accustomed to it, frankly.
Okay, thanks. I'm sort of curious about and you may or may not have an answer, but if I was a neighbor to this building, I would be curious about sort of the longevity of that treatment versus like a brick. If you were to be putting up new brick walls, we all have a general understanding that that's probably going to be there and hold up for a fair amount of time versus something that's painted. I'm just curious.
Absolutely fair
I
question.
understand there's
Yep.
businesses here, so it's to your advantage to keep it up and nice looking. But that was the first question that came to mind. And then two others. One, the image on the right indicates that signage may be going up, but it looks as though I'm curious as to whether or not you would continue to be proposing signage there. And then lastly, excuse me, I do just wonder if I did not go to architecture school, but the residual concrete column just does continue to look a little bit out of place to me. And so I wonder if there's any sort of additional treatment that you could put on that, square it up or paint it also, or cover it with something else. Just some other, where the original unpainted image of this entrance, the blocks that are there are just sort of the raw concrete. So maybe the concrete columns are actually sort of consistent with that, but with the paint treatment, they do kind of stand out a little bit more, in my opinion, and maybe not in a good way. So I don't know if while you're working on it, maybe there's another option there too.
So you had three questions. I think the first one was the longevity of material. So we actually had the Sherwin-Williams rep come to the site and spend a lot of time with us trying to come up with the ideal product. Yes, it's absolutely in our interest that this looks good long-term. I've been involved in commercial and residential real estate for 40 years now, something almost 40 years. I'm not that old, but 38 years to be exact. And all of our properties we maintain at a high level. It's important because otherwise you're not going to have tenants for longevity. So we're using it's called Luxol, Luxol, and you can Google that. It's a Sherwin-Williams product, which is specifically for concrete block. And that's the product that we used in the rear of the fire station as well. And that block was already rough, so we didn't have to abrade it anyway. In this case, we'll actually have to hand sand it to make sure it lasts a long time. I can't remember the warranty. I think it's 20 years on the Luxol. But of course, if there's any peeling, we'll address that in the interim. Second question, I'm sorry, was the column or was the signage? Yeah. So I know Ray's Play Space is talking to Brian Longstaff about potentially having some signage. I don't know what, so it's not us, it's the tenant. So they have to get approval from us as well. I told them you need to go to Town of Scarborough first and propose your signage and then bring it back to us for final approval. So I'm honestly not aware of exactly what they're proposing, though I do know that they sent me an email. Amanda Rothbard, who owns Ray's Play Space, sent me an email and said she would like signage. So I just directed her to Brian. And the third is the column. So it's really interesting. So I actually really like raw concrete because it's like the integrity of the structure. It is what it is. And when people start like covering things up, to me, it's like hiding something that isn't what it is. And so I recently did another building in Portland where we used exactly this raw concrete columns. And I think they actually worked. It was called Paris Terraces. It was a residential complex. And we got a lot of very favorable response to the concrete column. So personally, I like the concrete column. I can understand somebody would not. It's in the eye of the beholder. So I completely get it. I intentionally didn't have that painted in this rendering because it's called a pilotti is what the Italian architects used to do. And you'll see it in a lot of cities where you just have raw concrete columns. Boston, all over Boston City Hall has many of these, in fact. So there's something about showing the strength of what the material is and then not covering up or hiding what the inherent material is. So that's just my take. I mean, if the planning board is compelled to feel that we should paint that column, we'll definitely consider that.
Karen, do you have anything?
Just like driving up and down Route 1 numerous times a day, I'm having a hard time imagining exactly what the front looks like. But originally, this was all part of a plan to redo the whole building, correct? And now they're coming and just saying we want to change just this section of the original plan. Is that correct?
There are two towers, yes.
Okay.
They were just wanting, I think the original plan was just to paint the rest of the building.
Yeah, so
And the two towers were, I guess, the sticking points for.
Right. Absolutely. And thank you, Adam, for that clarification. So there actually is there were no other architectural changes in this whole complex. All we did is we painted. So we painted the front of the fire station and then we put up signage for Harbor Fish, or they put up signage for Harbor Fish and Rosemont. But there are no other architectural changes in this whole building. And in fact, we actually talked about the potential of doing historic going through the Park Service because the original building is 1969. It's the only quote unquote historic building in Scarborough. And the planning board said that to us. And we're like, 1969, that's historic, in this district. So of a commercial building. So we looked at that and we said, how do we dress the existing buildings to make them sort of user-friendly? And that's when we ended up coming up with the scheme. And I'm sorry, I didn't bring a rendering of the fire station, but you do probably see it as you drive by that I think it's more attractive just with the paint, which what we did. And that's similar to what we're trying to do here is dress it up, given what it is, and keep the structure remaining extant.
I just can't ignore the neighbors and the people that are looking at it all the time. And I don't know what was approved and what people were saying at the original meeting. I personally, I'm back and forth. You're right. Everyone knows what the public safety building is, but I think some folks saw that this was going to be an improvement that would make it look nicer. And, the original proposal in my mind probably looks more in conformance to what the whole building is and coming to kind of obviously the plan that was approved back then. That's all I have.
Chad, do you have anything?
I guess not much here, other than actually the black is actually the harder material on the steel to maintain the integrity of the that true deep dark black as far as the paint and finish. But I agree on the concrete columns remaining true to their material. And that's all I have.
Okay. I'm kind of curious, what's on that, on the photo on the left? What's between the two black bands? Is that actually?
It's metal. And it's another column, but it's a metal column. So there's the concrete, and then there's the I-beam, the horizontal I-beam, and then there's a piece of metal that vertical ties the two I-beams together, two horizontal I-beams.
Is that open right there?
It's all open, correct? Yeah. And there, it looks like there was intended to be a chandelier or something hung in there. And we're actually looking at that possibility of it creating that sort of formal entrance again. And Ray's Play Space has asked us to look at that as well. So to create lighting inside that open space.
So how much room is up there for that?
Actually, in terms of feet, maybe 3 feet. It's hard for me to,
There's a daycare up there. Is that?
Oh, how much room upstairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2,500 feet of daycare space.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a large space, actually. Well, there's a daycare, and then Amanda's husband, Adam, has his financial services building, his business there, and that's another 800 feet. So they're occupying the entire second floor. So it's over 3,000 feet, the entire second floor.
Now, Autumn, you mentioned a second tower. Did you?
Yes, there's 2 towers. So there's one on either side of the structure and they're pretty much identical. I would say there's one on the Fairfield side and there's this, I think this is the picture of the other street side.
This is the larger of the two. The other,
But they're really similar.
Yeah.
architecturally.
yep, the other doesn't go up to quite this height.
I'm trying to visualize where.
Most people have, if they visited the public safety building at all, they're always coming from the street side, so they're not seeing the other side of the building. But as Autumn said, it's almost identical to this, but just lower.
Right. So there's 2 sides of the building that look like this. Are you proposing to keep both the 2 sides, or is one already been?
Yeah, no, we're proposing to keep them both. Yeah.
I'm having a visually hard time, I guess. I'm used to seeing
Eric,
more
go to the
pictures and-
other slide,
Um,
because this is, see the gray and this is what it looks like now, the
Yeah,
gray.
yeah.
And maybe that's more familiar.
And
So
so,
if you're,
When you say the other side, are you talking about where the parking lot? over
yes,
there,
exactly.
Fire station. parking lot?
Correct. Yes.
that's the one side where the back of the fish market
Yeah,
and the dumpster, then it's just right there.
I
And then
never, I
there's-
never noticed a tower there.
Yeah, there's the tower there. It's,
And maybe a site plan would help visualize. Sounds like you guys aren't realizing what, I think you look at them so often.
You probably
that
don't
You're not even noticing them
Yeah.
because you probably have gone into the police department right through that entrance.
Yeah, yeah.
I guarantee. And then the other side is, like you said, the working side of the police station. So it was where patrol was coming in and things like that. So the public wasn't on the Fairfield facing side, but
Right. So
definitely the public, this is the public entrance on Westwood.
the other side's not quite as tall, and the police chief had his office in the corner of it.
Yeah.
And in fact, where there's these 2 gaps, these 2 openings, those don't exist because that was chief's office. And we know that all too well because his office was leaking for his entire tenure. And so it's actually cut off across. It doesn't have this other piece of sort of crenellation at the top in his old office. And all of the parapet was leaking until 2 days ago. We actually just removed the entire parapet and fixed the leak. But I don't know if you ever went in his office, but he for years had a gutter that came internally in his office and fed into a trash can because it leaked. Yep.
Yeah.
So I have a picture of what we're looking at and of the facade that you're questioning. And that doesn't have a concrete column. What that has is two white columns that looks a lot like, if you went back to that other, the other side, it showed, see that white pipe that's on the, up above the concrete column? That. So that's what we have on the back side. There's two of them. They're not concrete. And then there's a steel beam that's blue. And then it's just a flat facade, but it has that same kind of jagged roof line.
So what you've done on the other tower is basically painted.
We did not, it's actually concrete. It was painted by the police, by the public safety folks.
But are your plans to paint it so it's consistent with the rest of the building?
Yes,
So each tower will basically be painted.
correct. So each of these facades would be painted the terracotta color to match the rest of the building.
The only the thing that I find interesting is I think the one on the right, the original one, is more consistent with the planned apartment building.
The planned apartment building,
Yeah. The apartment.
the Avesta building that we're building.
And the roof line and everything.
Do we have an image of that? Because that, yeah.
I can go back through the property file and go look it up. I would just need a minute to get that though.
Yep.
The last page of our packet had a picture of the Firehouse Commons. Is that not what the Avesta housing is?
Yeah, that is Firehouse
Yeah,
So
Commons.
it's there and
Yeah.
it has a flat roof.
Yeah, but you see the soffit along the ridge line.
Okay.
Under above Firehouse Commons. I remember when we were having a discussion about that particular building, we talked a lot about the roof line and the fenestation and stuff like that. So,
I mean, generally speaking, I think I'm a little uncomfortable approving something where I don't even have pictures of everything. So I think what they're asking to approve is not only to change is this side of the building and the side of the building that we do not have a picture of. Is that correct? Okay, yeah.
so we should avoid.
Zoning board, we rely on the applicant to. I'm not sure where we draw that line really.
I mean, my impression is that this original structure was built to clearly define that that's the police station versus the fire station on the other side of the building, and the entrance and all that stuff. And that's why it was that design.
Right. I absolutely agree with that, Roger, that it was to define that as a separate building. And that's, again, what we're hoping to do as well, so that the folks at that address, when they say that they're Ray's Play Space or on the other side, Maniac Community Fitness, that people know that that's exactly where they are. And that address makes sense because there's a building which is identifiable. My concern of the rendering that we just had, when all these buildings sort of all look the same, and which is, I think I was on the planning board for the city of Portland for many, many years, and I'm finding that so many of these buildings, I can't differentiate them anymore. And they all sort of have the same, cornice detail, the same flat roof facade. And so to me, I actually personally just welcome buildings that actually have some unique character and personality. And so, and I absolutely agree, we should have brought the illustration from the other side. They were alike enough that I just thought that it was, would represent both, but
So basically what you want to do is not square the second floor off.
correct.
Leave it as it is
Yes,
and basically just paint the bricks. That's what you need.
correct, exactly. So leave it as it is and paint it and have a building that is unique in character and
Again, I mean, this wasn't the original plan, so I understand that now you want to do that, but that was not the plan that was approved and what I think the neighbors probably didn't come out and speak then. And so again, I'd like to acknowledge that people are here and they're the ones seeing it on.
Just to summary from my end anyway, I can appreciate those. I'm thinking particularly on behalf of your tenants here who are looking and others who are trying to navigate to this location. And it's interesting because like I personally, this isn't maybe like a treatment that it's not, I don't love it either, but I can appreciate a lot of the points that you have made about why to keep it. And so, but I'm also, as Karen said, sensitive to the folks in the neighborhood and the larger community who, had the opportunity to weigh on this the first time around and what was approved. And so, and I can also align myself with, your comments about the intent to keep the raw concrete column and sort of the premise behind doing that. And I wonder if, but that was a comment that we actually heard from both of the residents that spoke. So I wonder if maybe there's some sort of compromise there by which we can keep, move ahead with the proposed painting and current architecture of this facade, but maybe dress up the rest of it a little bit through a different treatment of that column. Particularly because it sounds like they're different on both sides. And so maybe some cohesion there would help.
yeah, I
our
mean,
neighbors.
again, it was my personal preference to like raw concrete. I understand a lot of people don't. So if that's, if that's the compromise, I'm always happy to compromise and find something. Yeah, there it is right there. That's the other side. So,
That's
so
the second-
yes, we could. There it is right there. Yeah. They've been painted white. Their concrete columns have been painted white and the white is actually peeling in places on those columns. So, my thinking was we were going to sandblast them, get the paint off. I'm happy to sandblast them and paint them a different color as a compromise.
I'm looking at the two photographs and I actually like that, the openness on the second deck. But I'm not crazy about the top.
Yeah, the
I'm
two,
talking about
the
the
two
one-
the two openings on the,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I like the
Yeah.
squared off. The treatment on the roof.
Yeah.
But I do like, I think, that middle, I like the existing, fixing up painting that existing. Empty space. Or whatever you're gonna do with that.
Well, again, the intent is to hang a light fixture
Yeah.
here and then you'll see the light sort of glow.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And that'll be a more formal entry for the play space.
Yeah, I'm just not crazy about the top.
These two here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have personally put those in. I wouldn't have added those. I'm not sure what their function, I'm not sure what their function is, other than an architect's whimsy.
I had another question. So you have tenants that are upstairs right now?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
They opened last week.
Okay.
Correct.
If you had to move forward with the original proposed plan, would they be displaced?
No, because this is superficial, the structure here. So, these these lights, these allow light into their windows. Actually, this is where Amanda's husband has his financial services, is right on the other side there. So this, as you can see, there's a window here that actually brings light into the building, but those are just, again, in the facade. This is like an empty facade up there. And it was meant to be a sort of placemaking facade. That's why it was built in the first place.
Yeah.
To identify this as an entry. And yeah, I may not be crazy about it, but it has worked for 30 plus years. And I'd like to see it continue to work rather than something that I just feel like is going to get sort of lost in anonymity with everything else that's being built these days.
How about the compromise that I suggested?
So you would like to fill in these?
No, keep
Go paint
go with
this.
that one, but square up the roof.
So it's a compromise, Jack, to take the castle sort of moment off and flatten that, but to keep all of the other openings intact. And then instead of filling them in like originally proposed. Basically, just
In
leveling
other
off
words, don't
the,
square off the front.
Yeah.
Leave the front like it is, just get rid of that cap.
Wait, just this piece here?
No,
No, the whole-
go right across, just like.
Wait,
whole
isn't
thing.
that squaring it off?
yes.
Yeah.
Squaring that off, but
Yeah.
leaving the other openings alone.
Those two rectangular ones.
Yeah, so leaving this alone, but
Yes.
squaring off
Leave
the
that,
top.
leave that.
Capping the rest of it then.
And then still painting it to match the rest of the building?
Right, you're gonna paint it no matter what.
Well, that's our intention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're gonna paint it. I'm just saying, get rid of the top crown there, whatever you call that top portion.
Right,
Square it off.
the original proposal included some party panel to sort of modernize it too, so if you just went with the painting and
Oh, okay. So,
just the roof,
oh yeah, these way down the bottom here?
correct.
Yeah, okay.
so. Again, I think you're, yeah, I think you're creating something that is being more sort of usual, what you see everywhere. And to me, I'm definitely looking for a compromise that will work here. And I don't mind painting these columns or even the I-beams different colors, but I think once you start cutting off the crenellation there, I think you've lost sort of the grand entry, the sense of
The castle.
to the castle. Exactly. And in fact, it's ironic that it's a kid's play space and they have a castle upstairs. So that they've built a castle inside the space.
What's the pleasure of the board? Just to get you.
I think we should do our due diligence and at least see pictures of all the changes that he wants to make. And then that would be,
So if I can throw in one more thing, if, because the painting season is quickly coming to a close, so if we don't address it, if it's not done, I mean, really this month, and we'll have to wait till late spring, or at least, till next year.
This is why we get paid a lot of money to do.
but I've only been on the board for a year, so I'm not sure how you address a change like this. I guess
I don't recall one like this myself.
I'm fine with what's being proposed with the additional treatment of addressing the raw concrete column in response to comments that were made by the public. And in an effort to make this entrance cohesive and consistent with the one on the other side of the building.
Would you suggest then, would that be black or white or
That would be my first guess, black.
black? Okay.
But
I just want to make sure
just because of it sort of coordinates with what else you're showing. In
I agree. I
that
just want to make sure I have clear direction, so
Yeah.
I'm not,
Okay, everybody fine with that?
Yes. Also,
some bird mitigation for the glass or for the birds running into, I'm a big birder, so I didn't realize it. Oh, the bird droppings. I was thinking the bird contact with plate glass because I've bird decoy. Yeah.
Get that, Aaron? That's a condition.
Yes, I'm just trying to get that in writing here.
I think we're getting there. Okay. We're running past our break already.
So the board would want to see something for the, as you mentioned, for the birds up there, Chad, the,
Yeah.
something.
So do you mean like Nixolite, like the stainless steel? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Nixolite's a product that we use in a lot of buildings where we have gulls perching, or it's mostly rock doves, frankly.
All right, I have, if the board wants to move forward with these changes, a condition to address the public comment to paint the support beam as discussed, and mitigate potential bird perching areas by placing something on the top of the structure. I don't know how the board feels about that proposed language, but I will throw that out to you to consider.
That's a new one on me. Yeah. Okay.
Here you go, Roger.
Oh, thank you. Okay, here is the motion. I moved to approve the project entitled Firehouse Village proposed by Firehouse Village LLC as depicted on the architectural renderings provided on 9/26/22. Findings, the proposal will change the approved architectural features from a flattened roof to the existing roof line and permit the cement blocks to be painted terracotta in order to match the existing colors elsewhere on the development. That's true. Okay. Conditions: 1, address the public comment to paint the support beam. Oh, yeah, columns. Okay. Number 2, mitigate potential bird areas by placing something on the top of the structure.
Bird perching areas.
Bird perching
Yeah,
area.
because I think
There you go.
that was, I didn't understand at first, but now I get it.
Very technical. Okay, do I have a second? Oh, Chad, okay. Any further comments? Okay, Doreen?
Chad Reed,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Karen Shoup,
No.
and Roger Beely.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming. Okay, staff reports.
So this item, our next meeting will be November 1st. We're off for Halloween, so that's a Tuesday. We did, I don't know if you all recall, the site plan issue that we had with the 8 single-family lots on the single-family homes on the one lot. And the question about site plan approval being required. I went ahead and took that to the Long Range Planning Committee last week. And they did recommend we move forward with site plan being required when we have single-family condos or single-family for rent. So that's going to the ordinance committee later in the month. So when that issue comes up again, we'll have that for you. Town council recently approved GMO ordinance amendments. So they approved some ordinance changes, not necessarily a change to the growth management ordinance, but essentially another 100 multifamily exemptions for 1-bedroom unit. We have about 28 left, so now we have 128 or give or take 1 or 2 until the end of 2024.
And then 289 mixed use or multifamily exemptions within the Crossroads plan development. No more than 58 of those 2 bedrooms. Crossroads can also use some of those 1 bedroom exemptions. They can also be part of our standard 144 per city. So, but they got an additional 289. Town council approved the solar ordinance update and the shoreland ordinance that you all held public hearings for. And then what is this last item? Eric threw this one on just to see if I was reading properly.
It's just a reminder to the board, we do have the Crystal Springs plan. I don't know how many of you have signed it yet, but I believe we need one more signature, Doreen, right? And we also received the 5th and 6th amended subdivisions for the town center residential subdivision. The 5th being the, I think it's Simplicity Court, the 8 tiny homes on lot 35. And the 6th amended being the lot line adjustment for lot 42 for the just recently approved Hackamore Place Apartments too. So please see Doreen to sign those before you leave today if you haven't already.
Sign today.
Yeah, before you leave. I mean, you could do it tomorrow but we figured now that we have you here, we'd bring up the plans for you. So.
Oh, okay.
Angela, did you have
Yep, I
something?
just have one more thing to add to, which I know Jen and Roger are both familiar with being on the transportation committee, but the next council corner live is going to be on the topic of transportation in Scarborough. And so obviously the planning board sees it, lives it. And so they're looking for really some input. I know the transportation committee is trying to kick off a townwide transportation study. So this is all part of really that public process and making sure we're getting feedback and what's going on with transportation and ways we can improve that through town. So I just wanted to put it out for the public because I do get calls a lot about bikes and ped accommodations. And I've told everybody, here's how you get involved. Paying attention to a lot of these public outreach processes and really having your voice heard. And it helps obviously the planning board when developers come through and whether you're debating whether a sidewalk is necessary or not. I can tell you from staff's point of view, we get a lot of calls about things like bike paths and sidewalks. And so I've just made it clear that really you just need to voice your opinion in a public setting like that and really to council, because that's where our direction comes. And it's also helpful for the planning board to hear those kind of things too on a regular basis. So I would encourage you guys to at least listen in. It is a hybrid meeting, so you don't have to attend to contribute. And that, I don't know if I said the date, October 20th at 6 p.m.
Are we going to be, if we do attend, are we basically going to be part of the audience? Or are we going to be in a position where?
I think both. I think you are a resident. This is council members wanting input from residents. I know when they did one similar for sustainability and conservation in town, both of those committees were there and contributed to the conversation. They didn't, necessarily lead the conversation, but they did chime in as they saw fit as residents, which you guys can also do.
Okay.
I have a question about the amendments to the growth ordinance. And you were talking about the number that are left this year and extending that into next year. I believe I understand, but I'm just curious for clarity. Are those allocated based on site plan, like what triggers someone
Building permit.
locking down
A
those
building permit.
units?
You have
Building
to
permit,
submit a
okay.
building permit.
Okay, so you have to have all your approvers.
Correct. You have to,
first.
you can't just say I want them. You
Yeah.
have to be at the building permit.
Thanks. I wasn't sure what part of the process.
Sure. Like, so the next gen project that you all applied for or approved for site plan, there's 22 1-bedroom exemptions that will be used when they go to the building permit process. So they will count 22 against it. Hackamore the AR building has 61 bedrooms. Those will go against that number. The 62 bedrooms will go against the normal GMO number. So that's how they're coming.
Okay, thanks.
So that has gone through the second reading with the town council and been approved?
It's been purchased.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anything else? Staff has exhausted everything?
No, that's it.
for that one.
Administrative amendment report.
So we have a couple of administrative amendments that we're processing, or I guess for the first one that we have processed. Staff has approved, after working with Firehouse Village and some of the tenants there, some curb adjustments out onto Route 1. I know that's been a pretty significant issue with plenty of residents in town. So we are working on that, and those have been approved. So we're just waiting to sort of get some more information from the applicant, I believe, at this point.
No, it's been approved. It's in their court to construct it. Angela and I spent about an hour and a half on site with them, watching cars jump curbs and hitting tires. And the owner applicant submitted some changes so we don't lose our left out prohibition. But I think will work, and it opens it up a bit. So it's in their court. So if you go to the Harbor Fish Market and the staff says it's the city's fault or the town's fault, it's no longer. Just putting that out there for public consumption.
Yeah, my understanding is they're gonna try to get it in before, well, this construction season, moving some curb. I think they want to address it pretty quickly.
really
Now that they're living with that. We just had said they need to propose something different and we need to take a look at it. So that's what they've done.
Elsewhere in town, on Higgins Beach, Champion Street, there's a seawall that the board typically would have reviewed as a shoreline zoning application, but working with Rachel, we were able to get that review processed as an administrative review. We're still working on that. Hopefully going to get that one finished in the next couple days. Blue Ocean Seafood down in Pine Point. They are reorienting their loading dock. So basically it would flip 90 degrees such that instead of having one truck be able to load back into it, they can use the wider portion and, make some minor adjustments to have two trucks be able to back into it. And that is it for administrative amendments.
Okay. Correspondence. We have this one from State Manufactured Homes.
Oh, we have minor development reviews first. Item
Oh,
14.
okay, I'm sorry.
So for minor development reviews, we are currently reviewing a application from Throttle Garage on Center Street to do a small footprint expansion to accommodate a utility infrastructure item that they had identified. So we will be processing that shortly.
Where's that on?
Throttle Garage on Center Street, right behind the Throttle Car Club.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Dynamic. Yeah. I must have put the wrong street.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Can I go on now?
Go for it.
Okay. Correspondence. Anything else besides this one here?
No, I mean, I think that's something for the board to discuss. And I know Autumn has met with State Manufactured Homes earlier this week about the potential to waive the recreation fees for the project.
So State Manufactured Homes, they had subdivision site plan approved last April 2021. They received an additional 31 homes. So they're going in and replacing the older existing homes with newer manufactured homes in the development. There's a recreation fee that's assessed for that, $500 per unit. And that is basically for residential development that doesn't have an amenity center or a common open space or something to that effect. I'm not sure if it was missed or they just didn't realize it, or it just got approved with it. But when they came in last week to request their first building permit and had to pay it, they were a bit surprised. Their notice of decision includes it. I went out on the site with the applicant owner Friday and drove around and saw all of the amenities that are included in Pinecrest. Hillcrest gets to share those, and they have a transportation bus. It's for age 55 and over. So the request really made sense to me. But I wanted to ask you all how you would like to handle it. If it would be it's not really a site plan amendment. It's something that this board can waive those rec fees. So I don't know if any of you have ever done anything like that, a waiving of a rec fee after the fact, when it perhaps should have been requested when they came through the first time. But I wanted a little bit of guidance from you on how you'd like to see that come through as an agenda item.
Any thoughts on that? You all got this, right? All right.
Is this the one?
I'm gonna actually remind you where it's located.
Thank you.
Pinecrest is the one that, basically it's behind Volvo. So you have to go in through South Portland to
Okay.
get to Hillcrest.
It's called Pinecrest.
Pinecrest.
Yeah.
Pinecrest is, yes, see, I'm getting them confused too.
Mhm, mhm.
Yes, Pinecrest is the most recent one where there is a mobile home park back there that they just expanded. So they don't have amenities per se on there, but as she had mentioned, they shuttle them back to Hillcrest, where there is a community center and there's.
Okay, so Hillcrest is the one that's like
Hillcrest is the one by Maine
Med.
Medical Center.
Okay, so I'm not going crazy.
So
Like this.
Pinecrest is basically you have to get
A
through
little
South
hidden.
Portland to
Okay,
get
and
back
so
to it.
they-
Discover.
Hillcrest is the one that we approved the expansion on their
Correct.
rec center.
The clubhouse?
Oh, the
Clubhouse.
Yes, Pinecrest has a really nice clubhouse that was recently approved and constructed. They have.
Hillcrest.
Hillcrest.
It's shared.
Hillcrest has a community
There's,
center.
Hillcrest is the one by Maine.
By
Medical.
Maine Med.
Yes,
Yeah.
Pinecrest is the one that's in South Portland.
Okay.
You go through it.
Yes.
And it's sort of hidden, but they have
But
shared.
they're sharing it. Okay, so that was my. Got it. I'm in favor then, if it's shared and they have access to those things, then yeah. Thank you.
And so we could bring it forward as just a,
Advisory. From the planning board to the town council.
well, no, you all are the decision makers for this one.
Oh, yeah?
So I have to bring it forward as something, and so.
Would
I
you have
was
to
thinking
amend their
a
site?
Site plan amendment, but it's just a memo and only, it doesn't have anything to do with their site plan, so I think that's probably the easiest. I just really wanted to ask if you all had ever handled anything like that.
No, but I think it seems appropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was an appropriate request, just wanted to bring it forward for that, so we'll get him to do it as a site plan. if
So
that
you're
sounds
okay
good.
with it, Chad? And Karen, you're okay with it? Okay, I'm okay with it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Let's see, where am I now, Eric?
Item 16, planning board
Planning board
comments.
comments. Let's hear that. Would you speak into the microphone? Okay, nothing else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Come on now.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Do you need?
Ted Reed,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Karen Scoot,
Yes.
Jennifer Lai.
Yes.
And Chad, I would just like to extend our gratitude for participating. I don't know exactly how long you've been on the board, but I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you got to be a voting member this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's been a pleasure.
No. No.
Oh, you do? Oh, yeah, sign the plan. Got them back there. Oh, okay.